So just a heads up, my review for Joker Part 2 is currently in YouTube purgatory because Warner Brothers asked me to temporarily take it down until 5 a.m. tomorrow morning. So apparently there is an embargo here in Australia, which they kind of neglected to, tell us about at the screening or on the invite or up on the screen before the film starts. That's neither here nor there because the video got really good traffic and really good views, but we're not going to talk about it. So for the time being, you're going to listen to me talk about my top 10 Freddy Krueger kills. Fuck yeah. Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new video here on the channel with the spooky season well underway and the 40th anniversary of the first Nightmare on Elm Street coming in hot. So much so I actually just pre-ordered my special edition 4K pack of the original Elm Street, which is due to ship out, I think, in 12 days time, or it gets released in 12 days time. So I'm really excited about that. I want to do like a full unboxing review and actually sit down, watch the film. And it's hard to record what you're really seeing up on screen, but obviously give my thoughts because I will definitely know what looks better. I've obviously studied the film so many times for the makeup reference, the glove reference, the costume reference, stuff like that. So I'm really keen to see how this thing looks with a 4K transfer. And of course, with a lot of Elm Street content coming this month, I thought I'd do my top 10 Freddy Krueger kills. This was really hard to do. We're obviously covering the first Elm Street right up until the remake, but there are so many imaginative and ingenious kills. So with these particular kills that I've ranked, it's because of, say, ingenuity, the effects that have gone into it, the concept, the fact that Freddy is being Freddy. There are some very lackluster kills in the franchise itself, but I'm pretty happy with this list. I feel like this is a damn solid list. So without further ado, let's get to it. Number 10. Coming in at number 10 is Dean from the Nightmare on Elm Street remake from 2010. I never thought I'd have something really good to say about this particular film. I get what they were going for. They're trying to be dark and broody. Jackie Earle Haley tried his absolute best, but the first kill at the very beginning of Dean, played by Kellen Lutz, I think that's how you pronounce his name, the big beefy dude from Twilight. It is a brutal kill and it really sets the tone for this film. I like that there's a bit of stalking in the kitchen of the diner in Springwood Diner when Dean falls asleep. Apparently, Kellen Lutz stayed awake for 2 days straight to get into the character and make his eyes look severely dark, but dude, you could have just had some makeup put on under your eyes. And when Freddy finally gets him, he puts a knife to his throat. And I love how Freddy is saying, "I am real." Cuts back to the real world and you see Dean just holding a knife at his throat and he plunges it straight in, and it's the most brutal looking throat slit I have seen. I think that's in thanks to the sound design as well. You can hear bones and tendons and muscles cracking and splitting apart. I think it's a very effective first kill in a very lackluster movie. Coming in at number 9 is Ron Grady's death from A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge. We have Rob Rustler playing Ron Grady, who I really have a soft spot for. I liked his character in the film. He was a jock, but he was a jock with heart. Now, this kill is brutal. It's not exactly gory, but I love how effective it is, the way it was filmed and the concept behind it. We see Freddy break out of Jesse into the real world. Ron is trapped in his room. The door is locked. His dad, who is played by the dude from Ferris Bueller's Day Off and Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. You'll never make the 6. His parents are trying to get to him. Freddy has this cheeky, demonic grin. He corners Grady, pins him up against his door, and plunges his meat glove? That sounds so wrong. And the blades go straight through the door and come down. I love that. It's such a nice little touch. Realistically, when you think about it, that probably wouldn't happen, but at the same time, it just goes to show how brutal this kill is. And there's like little streams and squirts of blood coming through the slits in the door, and it's just so good. Even though it's not like an overly big, complicated prosthetic they put on his torso, I think it's still an effective kill. The fear in his face as well when he realizes that door is locked and he is not getting out, and just how evil Freddy is in Part 2. It all just works so well. Coming in at number 8 is Carlos's death from Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare. This is cruel Freddy at one of his finest, I think. There's so much to this kill. It's toying with Carlos's senses, because obviously he is deaf in the film. You hear bits of Tracy, bits of his mother and other people when he's going and weaving through that maze and he comes to that brick wall. Freddy then plunges a Q-tip into his ear, popping his hearing aid off, and then cuts his ear off. It is very cheesy, very hokey with the
"Carlos, lend me your ear."
But I always imagine what this kill had have been like with part 1 or part 2 Fred. The way it would have been lit differently, a lot more darker, Freddy hidden in shadows. The voice modulation as well. It could have been such a different tone, but at the same time, the way Freddy has his foreplay, I guess you could say, with this kill is so great, where he slams Carlos through that wall into the boiler room. He's teasing him, toying with him. He gives him supersonic hearing with this mutant hearing aid. Brings a chalkboard out in the goofiest way possible. Scrapes his glove against the chalkboard until Carlos's head explodes. Now, Rachel Talalay, the director of this film, said Bob Shaye had an idea to possibly have his head explode in like jigsaw puzzle pieces and stuff like that. I don't think so. I just think a good old head explosion works well. Again, it's that cruel Freddy toying with someone's disability. That's fucked up. Coming in at number 7 is Greta's death from A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child. I actually have 2 Elm Street 5 kills on this list. The film itself may be very annoyingly boring at times, but you gotta admit some of the kills were brilliant, practically ingenious when it comes to the practical effects. And Greta's death, the idea of you are what you eat, the characterization of Greta having a controlling mother that wants to control her physique to be a model, I think that is brilliant. That is some brilliant writing. And just the notion of Freddy feeding Greta's guts to herself. I remember being described this particular kill when I was a kid and I hadn't seen the film yet, and I'm like, what? Why? That's cruel. And there's something so warped and twisted about the party and the party guests and Greta's mum. Robert's just in his element with the Bon Appetit bitch and filet de Barbie. Now, there is an extended version of this kill where it's a bit more brutal, and it's a shame that they didn't leave it in the theatrical cut, much like Dan's death in Elm Street 5. Like, it's pretty obvious what other kill I'm going to be including on this list. But the brutality of it and the concept behind it, you are what you eat, feeding guts to yourself, like that is cruel Freddy once again at his finest, much like Carlos. Coming in at number 6 is Debbie's death from A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. This is Screaming Mad George, this is Kevin Yeager, this is Howard Berger. This is some of the greatest special effects I've seen in the series in a whole, but just the story it tells and the progression of Debbie's death. She starts off bench pressing, Freddy slams her elbows down and it splits her elbows. It just looks so brutal. Again, with thanks to some great sound design, and eventually Debbie turns into a full-blown cockroach. But that transition, all the effects, it's much like Freddy breaking out of Jesse in Elm Street 2. Nearly each shot is a different special effect, something that had to be completed and created from scratch. Now, I remember Frank from the Slaughtered Lamb Movie podcast talking about this particular death, and he brought up a very good point. There's that shot of Debbie's face smashed down in the goo, and then her face gets torn off, and it's a cockroach. And he mentioned it, and I didn't even realize it till I listened to it again, that scream that goes from a human scream to an alien-like scream. It's no longer Debbie. Debbie is dead and it is now a cockroach. And just also the Roach Motel, the rear projection that they've used, and then it pans out and it's Freddy with the Roach Motel. You can check in, but you can't check out. So good, so cheesy, 80s goodness, but also the effects work that have gone into this, the concept as well, brilliant. Coming in at number 5, and some of you guys probably guessed it, is Dan's death from A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child. Now, this is one that also, much like Greta's death, got butchered by the MPAA when they were submitting the film to get a rating. They were eventually going to give it an X rating, so they had to cut a lot of this out, which is an absolute shame because the amount of work that has gone into this particular kill. Dan is on a motorbike, Freddy takes over and eventually transforms him into a Giga-inspired Iron Man. Just something so otherworldly, alien-like, but demonic at the same time. all the beautiful shots of the pipes going into Dan, his feet, his calf, his face, everything slowly but surely transforming him into this humanoid man and machine hybrid. Now, the footage I'm using is of the extended version, which is readily available on YouTube, which is really cool to see. Because again, the effects work that went into this is crazy. They used Danny Hassel, who played Dan at one point, for a close-up of his eyes and mid-transformation, but for the most part, it was a stuntman on a bike, and I don't know how the hell you would maneuver in that suit, let alone that custom-made bike. There's just so much shit going on, but amongst such a messy film, it's such a great kill. It's ingenious, it's brutal to watch, and it's also sad because Dan's the man. Coming in at number 4 is Glenn's death from the first A Nightmare in Elm Street. Johnny Depp meeting his demise at the end of the first Elm Street. Again, ingenious, and they reuse this particular set from the Tina kill. But I love the idea that he gets sucked into his bed and his record player goes in and everything. There are stories, and you hear it on the DVD commentary, that they used the hero glove when they dragged him in, and they didn't. That's actually the stunt glove, because there's just no fucking way you would use the hero sharp metal glove on an actor when you are pulling them into a stage beneath them. Like, he would land on it and get fucking stabbed. But there's just something so comical about the record player going in and that little bubble gurp you hear right before the geyser comes shooting up. It's like bloop. And I just think back in 84, no one would have expected that. Like, if you hadn't seen the trailers or anything like that, you'd be like, this is twisted. What the fuck? He's just mush now. He is just spaghetti sauce. There was an alternate version filmed of Johnny Depp coming up through the bed covered in blood, and he just collapses on the bed, which it's just not very effective. It's kind of creepy, but the geyser of blood is so effective, so imaginative, and so twisted. I love when the mum comes in and you see the blood dripping from the ceiling. Now, when they actually filmed this, the set overbalanced and tipped over, and you can see it. You can see it gushing to one side. Apparently, it all spilled out of the window. People got electrocuted. Sparks were going off everywhere. So that's all good fun. At the end of the day, they got the shot, and it's super memorable and super classic in the horror genre. Now, this was a tough one, and it's probably a very unpopular opinion, but to me, this just comes back to it being like classic Freddy once again, is Mark's death from Freddy vs. Jason, and technically Freddy's only real kill in the film. Most times out of 10, Jason beats him to it, or Jason has the higher body count in Freddy vs. Jason. But with Mark's kill, there's something just so mean about it, because Freddy portrays his brother at one point who died of suicide, and then Mark thinks he's reunited with his brother, but it's actually Freddy. Freddy then slams Mark against the corner of the bathroom, sets him on fire, and just the cherry on top is the invisible glove slash against the face, and then we see on Mark's back, burned into him, a message: Freddy's back. To me, that just goes back to old school Elm Street. I think Freddy vs. Jason, for the characterization of Freddy, was a great return to form, especially for Robert Englund. But to me, the way he stalks Mark, the way he tricks Mark into thinking he's seeing his brother, again, it's that cruel Freddy once again, but brutal with that backburn and that face slash. Coming in at number 2 is Philip's death from A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors. To me, this is so ingenious and so cruel at the same time. We have Philip, who creates puppets and stuff like that, who's a little bit suicidal, who's in Western Hills with the rest of the Dream Warriors. When he's asleep, Freddy turns into a puppet, becomes full form Freddy, slits his wrists, slits his ankles, and uses his veins and tendons as strings and marionettes him through the hospital, which I think is brilliant writing. Like, that's so cool, but it's so brutal to watch with that makeup by Kevin Yeager of the tendons coming out of his wrists. And in the real world, it just looks like Philip is sleepwalking. He has a problem with sleepwalking as well in the film, to the point where Freddy takes him up to a tower at the hospital, and it makes it look like a self-inflicted death. There's something so charming about the stop motion puppet Freddy. There's something scary as well about it when he morphs into full Freddy. I think when it comes to preying on someone's, say, hobbies or fears, that is one of the finest kills in the Elm Street franchise. Coming in at number 1, and it's no surprise, and it's the first cab off the rank in the entire franchise, it's Tina's death. Again, nothing overly extravagant in terms of effects, but the engineering that went into this kill, but again, the foreplay that goes into this kill still gets me to this day. I think because it's so simple in its execution. We start off with Tina in her mum's bedroom with Rod. There's stones thrown against the window. One embeds itself into the window. We lead out into the alleyway and we see Freddy scraping his glove up against the wall. We see his arms extended, which back in the day, you'd be like, this is twisted. What is going on? But it is like a true nightmare. There's the gag of Freddy coming out behind the tree, the face rip off, exposing his skeleton face, and then we cut back to the bedroom and we see an invisible Freddy slash Tina open, throw her around, and drag her up against the wall. And I think Amanda Wyss does such an incredible job at showcasing fear, knowing you are about to die, trying to reach out to your boyfriend, knowing that it's not going to do anything at the end of the day. So kudos to Amanda Wyss. She did an incredible job. They obviously used the rotating room, so she's technically on the floor. Now, they actually shot footage of Robert Englund dragging her up the wall as an alternate take to see if it would work to show Freddy in the room with her. There is something eerily creepy about it, but I think at the same time, not seeing Freddy, but just hearing his grunts and his groans as he's trying to drag this girl up the wall, that's more horrific because you're trying to imagine how that would look. At the end of the day, I'm still glad the footage is readily available to see of what they attempted, and I get it. But at the same time, the less you know, sometimes it's better. There you have it, guys. Those are my top 10 kills from the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. It was really hard to rank these, especially when it came to like the final three. But at the end of the day, Tina's death, even though it's the first cab off the rank, it just works for me and it's just perfect. With that being said, guys, let me know down below what your top 10 kills would be. Which one really stands out to you? Love you guts, and I'll catch you in the next one.